Welcome to the Wolverine TV. I'm Clayton Sayfie with Holland. We are from thewolverine.com. But this is the Wolverine recruiting show for this week, and we are talking about some of the top headlines. And not all of them are super positive, but there's certainly a lot going on within the Michigan football program and definitely with recruiting. We'll start with Xavier Worthy, the guy that everybody wants to talk about, the guy who visited Alabama last weekend for the Iron Bowl and then tweeted a graphic out early in the week of a Michigan logo and an Alabama logo and the date, December 16th, which is signing day, and basically saying he's going to make a decision. We were talking before the show. I mean, do we really consider Xavier Worthy a Michigan commit at this point?
No, right now I consider him an uncommitted target. If you're setting a decision date and you have hats on the table, you're not really committed right now. So Michigan's going to have to continue to work on him. They actually the Michigan staff had a positive conversation with Xavier on Tuesday. The commits are still, trying to keep him on board. They have all been texting him. I actually spoke to a commit earlier today that said they're kind of all in on trying to keep Worthy on board. But at the same time, you don't pay your own way from Fresno to Tuscaloosa. That's an expensive trip, and buy tickets to the Iron Bowl if you're not seriously considering Alabama. Xavier is has that dog mentality because he has a lot to prove. He's from a single parent household, and so they don't, they're not, you know, I guess bathing in wealth. So it's an expensive trip to go out there, and so the fact that they made that trip to me says that it's not just for fun. Alabama's a serious option, and I think you'd have to be ignorant to think it was just for fun. It's Alabama. I mean, they are consistently one of the best programs in the country. They do a tremendous job of spreading the ball around. They've had a ton of NFL production at the wide receiver position, even recently here with Jerry Judy and Henry Ruggs, and obviously, dating back a few years with Julio Jones. This year, they have two of the best wide receivers in the country in Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith, who Michigan's own offensive coordinator Josh Gaddis has compared Worthy to. Gaddis was at Alabama, and I think he sold him on how he ran the offense there, how he was key in the development of guys like Waddle and Devontae Smith. But you have to keep in mind he was just there for a year, or maybe a little bit more than a year. I think that Bama's Bama. They're going to have receiver production regardless. And like I said, they showcased their receivers pretty damn well on Saturday. I watched the entire Iron Bowl, and Devontae Smith had a huge game, and Jalen Waddle didn't even play because he's out with injury. So just I think with him, for Bama, it's an easy sell. Like, keep in mind we didn't even have Jalen Waddle, and this is the type of production we had from our wide receivers. And look at how many targets every guy had. So I know people have commented, well, Bama already has X amount of highly touted receivers committed. Like, it doesn't matter. They get them all involved. On top of that, two of those highly touted guys are bigger outside guys that don't fit the Xavier Worthy mold. I think Xavier would be pretty explosive in that offense. I think Xavier understands that. And obviously, Michigan has a ton of questions. They're obviously a little more familiar with the Michigan coaching staff. They've really developed a bond with them. Michigan obviously offers a better education as well. The Worthies are really close to Christian Dixon's family. Uh, Xavier himself has a rapport with some of the commits in the class, but at the same time, with Michigan struggling with so many unanswered questions, and to be wanted by Alabama, which isn't always the case. Alabama throws out a bunch of offers most of the time to get kids to camp so they can evaluate them. But Nick Saban actually wants Xavier Worthy, and to have that option on the table, I think it is going to be tough for him to pass up. So right now, I would consider him uncommitted, but I would actually favor Alabama right now. But at the same time, there's still that familiarity. There's still a few weeks until he has to sign for Michigan to get him back on the boat.
Yeah, and it's tough anytime a kid goes to a campus like Alabama. You never know, exactly if he's going to come back still committed to your school, if you're in Michigan spot or what. So obviously, we will find out here in the middle of this month what exactly happens with Xavier Worthy. If he sticks with Michigan, if he sticks with the familiarity, like you mentioned, or if he moves on to Alabama, where he is wanted by Nick Saban and his staff, and where he could thrive in a really winning program and an elite program. We will see. The next thing this week was Louis Hansen taking a visit over Thanksgiving weekend, coming in just after the holiday. Obviously, as we've talked about with any kid visiting, they can't be with the coaches. They can't be in the facilities like normal because of COVID-19. But he's able to see the campus. He hasn't been since over a year ago. You've spoken with some sources on his visit. I guess how did it go, and I guess what's the status with Louis Hansen moving forward here?
Yeah, I just interviewed Louis not too long ago, so I had a chance to catch up with him and his dad. Louis's been one of the most committed guys in this class. He hasn't wavered. He absolutely loves Michigan as a program, as an academic institution. So I'm not that worried about Hansen right now. I think he's pretty much, locked in. This was a good trip because it was an opportunity for him to get a real intimate feel of Michigan and Ann Arbor. He came on his own accord as opposed to the big visit weekend that featured a lot of other commits, and mostly because he really wanted his mom to see it. This was his mom's first time on campus. I think she really enjoyed the trip, and so I think it kind of helped solidify the commitment. And I think that right now, Michigan doesn't have too much to worry about. At the same time, other schools like Boston College, Duke, Notre Dame's reached out. So he still has suitors consistently in his phone. So, uh, anytime you have situations like Michigan's, I covered it at Texas as well when they made the transition from Charlie Strong to Tom Herman. Anytime you have kids that appear to be extremely solid on the surface, that might not always be the case. So I think everybody right now has a little bit of concern with the direction Michigan's moving in. So it's all commits are worth keeping an eye on right now. But overall, he enjoyed the visit, got a better feel for Ann Arbor. His mom really liked it. And like I said, Louis has been one of the most solid commits in this class.
The final thing for this week in this week's recruiting show, and we appreciate everybody. Please hit the like button and subscribe. Damien Jackson, 5-star 2022 corner, the number 2 recruit in the class of 2022. He releases his top 6: Arizona State, Clemson, Michigan, Ohio State, Oklahoma, and USC. Will Johnson released his final 5 last week, and we talked about that on last week's recruiting show. These two are thought of to be possibly a package deal, even though they just met each other for the first time a couple weeks ago when they were both in Ann Arbor for the Wisconsin game and hanging out with a bunch of commits and targets. But I guess the latest with Damien Jackson, what you think of his top 6, considering that 5 out of those 6 are the same as Will Johnson's?
Yeah, I think he I think he really has a mutual interest in a lot of those schools. Obviously, like you mentioned, 5 of the 6 are the same as Will Johnson. They have talked a lot about playing with each other. Top players want to play with top players. At the same time, package deals often don't really work out. I do think that in this case there is a legitimate want to, but we still have to wait and see if it comes into fruition. With Will, I think the top contenders are Michigan, Ohio State, and Oklahoma. I think with Damani, it's Michigan, Ohio State, and USC with Clemson kind of up there, getting up there as well. I've talked to sources on the USC side, and they still feel really good about Damani. His family's originally from Ohio. There's a lot of Ohio State influence in that recruitment. His dad obviously grew up a Michigan fan, and they were on campus a couple of weeks ago for the big visit weekend. So all those schools are in play. Clemson is Clemson. Their starting quarterback, or not their starting quarterback, their backup quarterback, who started a couple of games, DJU, is close to the Jackson family. So that's something they're weighing as well. Obviously, they pulled DJ, a 5-star kid, out of California, and so they're capable of landing Damani as well. So I wouldn't count out Clemson in that recruitment either. Overall, with Michigan, I mean, the biggest thing with them is just answering some of these unanswered questions and producing results on the field. I mean, I think they've hurt themselves in the Damani Jackson recruitment and in the Will Johnson recruitment to a little bit of a lesser extent with lack of results. I mean, losing to Penn State over the weekend was a really, really bad loss, and we'll just have to see what happens with Maryland coming up.
So that is our recruiting show for this week. Make sure to check us out at thewolverine.com. As always,